Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Trinidad and Tobago's government gets kudos from UN on COVID. This story takes the lead in our 1051st edition of Caribbean Perspective for Thursday, 18th February 2021. Details after this break.
Did you know that your friends and family can now shop at the Food Fair from anywhere in the world and you can receive here in Grenada? The Food Fair and GrenadaMarket.com now make it possible through secure online shopping and personalized customer service. Simply send your loved ones a list of your preferred items or let them fill an online basket and the items will be available for pickup or delivery. Visit GrenadaMarket.com or thefoodfair.gd today for more details. The new norm. Spread the news.
Welcome back. The United Nations top diplomat in Trinidad and Tobago says the government has done an amazing job in managing the COVID-19 pandemic. In an interview with TV6's political editor Joel Brown, the UN official says that its role is to advocate for small island states like Trinidad and Tobago to have access to COVID-19 vaccines.
In an interview with TV6 News, United Nations resident coordinator in Trinidad and Tobago, Marina Walters, gave an assessment of the Twin Island Republic's management of the COVID-19 crisis.
First of all, Trinidad and Tobago, really kudos to the government, has done an amazing job in managing. And the pandemic, the context around security, health, and again, in that area was very much also a bit of a role model. I'm fully aware that due to the border closure, there are still a lot of discussions and unhappy Trinidadians who can't come back.
An apparent reference to the government's closure of this nation's borders in March of last year as part of measures to curb the spread of COVID-19, with exemptions only to be granted by the National Security Minister, Stuart Young. On Wednesday, the day of our interview with Ms. Walters, the Health Ministry said Trinidad and Tobago had 181 active COVID-19 positive cases, inclusive of 14 new cases. As of Wednesday, 136 patients died of COVID-19 in Trinidad and Tobago. The Health Ministry also said 89,002 people had been tested for COVID-19 at public and private medical institutions, and that since March 12th, of last year, there have been 7,631 confirmed cases of COVID-19, of which 7,314 patients have been discharged. Comparatively in the region, the Voice of America and other media outlets are reporting that Jamaica began a new 2-week 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew on Wednesday, and just over 1,900 people contracted COVID-19 in the past week in Jamaica, where there have been 17,298 infections and 358 deaths, according to the Johns Hopkins University COVID Resource Center.
But if you look at the numbers, if you look at the case management, sometimes it takes courage of a leader or leadership to take decisions that are not always welcome by everybody, but keep the population safe. And so if you take the regional context of the case of infection, the infection rates, the second and third waves, Trinidad and Tobago's road has done an excellent job managing the pandemic within the country.
Ms. Walters said the next challenge in Trinidad and Tobago is access to the COVID-19 vaccines.
Since the beginning, I think the powerful WHO team in particular has been at the side of the Ministry of Health. And I think you've seen my colleague, Dr. Erica Wheeler, in many press conferences also. I mean, part of the UN team has been on 24/7 since it all started, right? All hands on deck, supporting, getting equipment in, procurement of equipment. Because, if the United Nations has one key role here in Trinidad and Tobago, is to raise the hand for small island states such as Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago is a very strong country, economically strong, educationally, but it's still a small island states. That voice needs to be pushed when it comes to access in the very early stages of PPEs, material.
The UN resident coordinator says the same principle applies to the COVID-19 vaccines. She made reference to the COVAX facility, which has been mentioned by the government and which is meant to ensure that everyone on the planet has equitable access to the COVID vaccines.
And we're trying. We're not saying we're there, but the fact that Trinidad and Tobago did get now the first, so to say, slot of, I think, about 120,000 vaccines is a small success for the team here, as not all the countries were able to get the first allotment of vaccines.
A reference to the AstraZeneca vaccine. The BBC has reported that South Africa halted its rollout of the AstraZeneca vaccine after a study showed disappointing results against a new COVID-19 variant there. The Associated Press has reported that independent experts advising the World Health Organization on Wednesday recommended the use of the AstraZeneca vaccine. Ms. Walters said the main focus of the UN, where vaccines are concerned, is advocating for small island states such as Trinidad and Tobago to have access.
My boss, the UN Secretary General, has said on several occasions that there's, to understand unhappiness with the fact that there are a number of countries out there that at this point, procured 3 times the amount of vaccines they will need for their own population. And what that results in is a deadlock in the pipeline. So for us, the constant job is to reshuffle, to help the pipeline, to make sure that, smaller countries will not be pushed to 2022 to get their supply of vaccines. But it's
Jewel Brown, TV6 News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
In another item out of Trinidad with Jewel Brown again, the police commissioner says that the expiration of the anti-gang legislation last year threatens gains made by law enforcement in the war on criminal gangs. He expressed his concern during a Joint Select Committee hearing on Tuesday.
During a hearing of the Parliament's Joint Select Committee on National Security, which examined strategies to prevent the prevalence of organized criminal gangs in Trinidad and Tobago, Police Commissioner Guy Griffith made reference to the kidnapping and killing of Andrea Barrett as he spoke about the structure of criminal gangs.
Similar to what would have taken place in the unfortunate death of Miss Barrett. Several persons getting together, strategizing, organizing to commit an act of violence on someone, that is a gang. It may not be an established gang, but we have nothing of established gangs being involved in that type of crime. The established gangs, primarily, their focus is to make money as much as possible. Then there's the ego situation, there's the blocks that they need to control.
Commissioner Griffith said membership in criminal gangs has been reduced greatly in recent years. It was a point raised by the committee's chairman, Fitzgerald Hines, the Minister of Youth Development and National Service.
During a debate in the House of Representatives on Friday, the 20th of November 2020, the Attorney General maintained that armed with the relevant legislation, the national security agencies were successful at reducing the number of organized criminal gangs in Trinidad and Tobago from 211 to 129 over the period 2018 to 2020, with a reduction from 2,400 members to about 1,014. This was a statistic shared by the Attorney General.
He said a reduction is commendable and hopefully sustainable.
The proliferation of gangs remain a burning issue and a threatening issue to the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
The police commissioner raised the concerns about the non-support of legislation that expired last November because it did not get the required support of the opposition.
Unfortunately, we do see a concern in the very near future because one of the things that would have caused the support of this, again, goes now to tertiary crime prevention, that being the criminal justice system. The anti-gang legislation was very critical to provide us with that type of that strength and the tools to give us that to put pressure on individuals to be involved in gang activity. By removing the anti-gang legislation, it has now been easy enough that a gang member can do a full-page advertisement to vulnerable youths and tell them, listen, you can easily join us now. You can advertise and where the numbers would have diminished, the numbers can very well increase.
Committee member and opposition Senator Jayanti Lakshmi Dayal posed a question in reference to another piece of legislation that did not get opposition support.
I would just like the statistics, if the Commissioner could provide them later on how many of the cases where persons have been denied bail have actually commenced in the first 120 days after that denial of bail. So I would like to see those statistics as well, please. If it can be provided.
I will provide that for you, ma'am. And again, it goes back, that is outside of the control of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. And even going back when people state that the police were not ready. If, for example, we have a situation with a shooting, whereas again, in some cities in North America, in 6 days, you can get the ballistic testing. It will take 6 years in this country. So if we have to wait 6 years for the ballistic testing, I understand where you're coming from. The person now is remaining there for 6 years because of a flawed system.
Jewel Brown, TV6 News.
Over in Guyana, the leader of the opposition there, Joseph Harman, has labelled Budget 2021 as a plan on the path to nowhere. HGP's Wendell Badri has the details in this report.
Notwithstanding the fact that it was presented under the theme, A Path to Recovery, Economic Dynamism and Resilience, opposition leader Joseph Harman is positing that Budget 2021 is mired in confusion and outlines a vision on a path to nowhere. The opposition leader highlighted that the 2020 budget reflects real GDP growth by over some 40% under the previous administration. And on that note, he said that it appears as though the authors of the 2021 budget are seeking to take the nation on a backward trajectory.
The issue I have now is that we seem to be going back many years to dismantle a structure that has shown that it has the resilience to make Guyana a resilient economy that can grow, that people can feel comfortable in.
Harman bashed the incumbent administration, labeling them as heartless as it relates to benefits to public servants in this year's budget.
There's nothing in this budget for the public servants. There's nothing here. A very skimpy amount for frontline healthcare workers.
Those comments by Harman came in for strong rebuke from the Vice President, Bharat Jagdeo, who stated that the APNU AFC continues to mislead its supporters by making false claims that nothing was earmarked for public servants in the budget. Jagdeo said, and I quote, "The fact is that over $10 billion has been budgeted in the estimates under the head Revision of Wages and Salaries. A huge part of that sum will go towards salary increases for public sector workers." End quote. Harman further spoke to the dismissal of more than 1,000 workers from the public sector. He said that the incumbent, after carrying out those acts of firing, will have to get down to rebuilding a robust and resilient public service, even though they have removed some of the most competent minds from key positions in the sector. He is adamant that enough emphasis is not placed on youth, women, the elderly, the environment, justice and security, among a host of other key areas that are expected to be covered by the budget. Budget estimates for 2021 was presented to the National Assembly on Friday last by Senior Minister within the Office of the President with responsibility for finance, Dr. Ashni Singh, to the tune of $383.1 billion, the biggest budget for Guyana in history. While a mammoth $60.7 billion was earmarked for the education sector, the public health sector received the second largest allocation, amounting to $53.5 billion. Public safety and security was allocated $22.2 billion, while $12 billion was earmarked for drainage and irrigation development. Culture, youth and sport received $3.5 billion, and persons living with disabilities have been allocated $120 million. Other measures implemented via the budget include reducing the cost of basic food supplies and household items, as well as construction and home ownership. Wendell Badri, HGP Nightly News.
Did you know that your friends and family can now shop at the Food Fair from anywhere in the world, and you can receive here in Grenada? The Food Fair and GrenadaMarket.com now make it possible through secure online shopping and personalized customer service. Simply send your loved ones a list of your preferred items or let them fill an online basket, and the items will be available for pickup or delivery. Visit GrenadaMarket.com or thefoodfair.gd today for more details. The new norm. Spread the news.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.